Hello, and welcome to Roadside, Florida, the program that takes you back in time to those Florida roadside attractions loved by tourists and locals alike. I'm Rene Ramos, director of the Lynn and Lewis Wolfson II Florida Moving Image Archives. My co-pilot in this journey, once again, is historian Sylvia Gurinsky. We begin today's voyage in North Miami Beach, at a place where visitors could mingle with dozens of historical figures and celebrities in a strange and almost spooky environment. Located at 13899 Biscayne Boulevard, the Miami Wax Museum was a must-see attraction for visitors back in the 1960s, all the way to the mid-1980s. Hey, did that wax figure just wink and smile at me?
It was history come to life. Well, lifelike. The neoclassical style Miami Wax Museum opened in North Miami in 1959. Figures made of beeswax and real hair struck poses representing important moments in U.S., Florida, and Latin American history. Notables ranged from Juan Ponce de Leon and Simón Bolívar to John Glenn. Pierre Duperreau, the museum's director, promoted realism in the depicted scenes. The museum broke ground by being one of the first to locally have audio descriptions in English and Spanish. But innovative storytelling could not hold back changes in the neighborhood or the evolution of people's interests. The museum began losing customers to more high-tech attractions and closed in 1984. Today, the structure is an office building.
To tell us more about the Miami Wax Museum, here's Sylvia Gurinsky. Welcome back, Sylvia.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
So tell me more about this wax museum. I'm always curious if it had any kind of an affiliation with Madame Tussauds Museum in London.
No. This was a completely independent wax museum from any other standalone attraction. And Pierre Duperreau, who originated and ran it pretty much through the whole run, just loved history and wanted to incorporate world history, national history, international Florida history into this museum. A lot of storytelling.
Speaking of stories, I recall we had a request for the Wolfson Archives to provide footage of all things Ponce de Leon discovering Florida. And we kind of looked at each other and how's that possible since this happened hundreds of years ago. But it turned out we provided some footage actually of a wax figure of Ponce de Leon.
Yes, and they had Ponce de Leon discovering Florida with the Tequesta Indians around. A lot of other items from Florida history too, right up to the astronauts, John Glenn and I believe Alan Shepard also highlighted in the exhibits that they had at the Wax Museum.
And it went on all the way through the 1980s, I would say.
1980s, mid-1980s. The neighborhood was starting to change by then, and a lot of other tourist attractions. And in fact, I believe the same year or the year before the Wax Museum closed, the Historical Museum, now History Miami, where I work part-time, had opened its new facility downtown. And they had also lifelike figures at the time in their first incarnation of the first arrivals in Florida.
Fantastic.
So competition.
Yep. Moving a little bit north, just a few blocks from the Wax Museum. Blocks? Well, in this case, stones. Stones were needed to complete this attraction. Imagine building a life-size Lego house and the Lego bricks are made of stone. That's the story of the Spanish Monastery in North Miami Beach, the site of many photo shoots, weddings, and beautiful family memories. The Spanish Monastery is a unique trip back in time to old Spain with a fascinating only in Florida history. So, ole.
Like so many South Floridians, the region's oldest structure, the Spanish Monastery, is from somewhere else. The monastery of Saint Bernard de Clairvaux was first built long ago and far away, in 1141 near Segovia, Spain. But by the 1920s, an impoverished Spanish government sold it to William Randolph Hearst, who intended to rebuild it as one of his castles. After the stock market crash of 1929, the stones were put in storage in New Jersey. In 1952, two entrepreneurs bought the stones, brought them to North Miami Beach, and rebuilt the structure. They opened it as a tourist attraction. In 1964, philanthropist Robert Pentland bought it and presented it to the Episcopal Diocese of Southeast Florida. Today it's a working church, but welcomes visitors to the building's lovely grounds and gift shop.
So Sylvia, tell me a little bit more about the Spanish Monastery. So they actually physically brought the blocks, well, first of all, they had to dismantle it.
Yes.
And then they brought the blocks over, and what happened after that?
And they stayed in a warehouse in New Jersey for 20 years because the stock market crashed. William Randolph Hearst could not build his newest castle that he would have wanted to build with those stones. And finally, a couple of promoters in the early 1950s got a hold of them and decided to bring them, of all places, to South Florida and reassembled them. I believe Look magazine may have referred to it as the largest jigsaw puzzle in the Western Hemisphere. And it started out as a tourist attraction with tours going on, but it didn't make much money. And Colonel Pentland decided to purchase it and give it to the Episcopal Church. So it has combined the best of both worlds ever since. It is a tourist attraction. People go there, they take tours, there's a gift shop and all that, and they do have weddings and things like that, but it is also a working church, including a very nice chapel.
So I guess if somebody wanted to pay a visit to the Spanish Monastery, they could find out the exact hours, because with all of those events going on, you might show up and there could be a wedding or a photo shoot happening.
Right, exactly. And it was a while before I got a chance to take my first tour there. I went when Dade Heritage Trust had the Dade Heritage Days, and they, in fact, have had interruptions because of events going on. But they have a website so people can check.
Absolutely. We're taking our first break, but when we come back, we'll be setting sail for a pirate adventure in exotic Dania. Stay tuned to find out more.
Start your story at MDC. Be analytical. Be imaginative. Be a rising star. Be bold. Be connected. Be the solution. Be ready. What's your story? Be the best. Be you. Be MDC.
Fresh thinking is being served at Miami-Dade College. Create your own recipe for success in the evolution of food culture at the Miami Culinary Institute. Learn the skills you need to jumpstart your career in the culinary arts. Turn green into gourmet and celery into salary. Miami Culinary Institute. Food, culture, innovation. Visit us at miamidadeculinary.com. Register now. Miami Culinary Institute.
Education and opportunity within reach. You're watching MDC-TV.
Welcome back. Legend has it that there's a lost city called Atlantis at the bottom of the sea. Well, Florida's own version, called Six Flags Atlantis in Hollywood, included a wave pool, a lake with water ski shows, and a terrifying 7-story slide tower. Let's slip on those water goggles, jump in, and make a huge splash.
Throughout the 1980s, kids and adults could get a summer splash all year round without ever having to go to the ocean. Six Flags Atlantis opened in 1983 next to I-95 in Hollywood. Water lovers, overseen by King Neptune, swam in the King of the Waves pool and tested themselves in the Thunderball water slide. Miami Vice filmed part of an episode there. Even a 1988 sale of the attraction by Bally, changing the name to Atlantis, the Water Kingdom, didn't stop the fun. But Hurricane Andrew did. The 1992 storm did some damage to Atlantis, causing it to close. After attempts to find a new owner or location, it went the way of so many Broward County attractions to the mall. It's now the Oakwood Shopping Plaza.
Well, welcome back, Sylvia. So Six Flags Atlantis, I actually remember going there as a kid and enjoying that wave pool, and it was actually pretty terrifying in and of itself. But I'm kind of surprised that that particular attraction's not there any longer. What do you think happened?
Well, what happened basically is Hurricane Andrew, which did some damage to Atlantis and closed it down in 1992. But by then, Hollywood was starting to change, Hollywood's government had changed, and they were going away from a lot of the big tent businesses and attractions that they had back then. So Six Flags Atlantis closed. Couple of the attractions were relocated actually up I-95 to where Dania Beach had the roller coaster and some other attractions for a while. But Atlantis went the way of so many other things in Broward, becoming a shopping mall.
Well, that big wooden roller coaster is gone as well, so it seems like a lot of those roadside attractions really dried up in South Florida over the years, and you have to go further up to enjoy any kind of a water park to Orlando.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I think Palm Beach County might have some sort of a water park, and there might be something in Dade as well. But if any place cries out for a water park in the summertime, it is Southeast Florida.
Absolutely.
As many as possible.
Absolutely. Ahoy, mateys. Our next stop is north of Hollywood at Pirates World in Dania, a fun family place where anybody could be a corsair for a day. With a real crow's nest and a pirate ship ride, as well as a log flume, roller coasters, and slides, there were enough amusements here for buccaneers of all ages. Are you ready? Then let's roll that video.
Ahoy, mateys to Dania. That could have been the call during the late 1960s and early 1970s for people who went to Pirates World. Located on a former tomato patch site, Pirates World had plenty of entertainment for all. For children and families, there were pirate-themed rides, roller coasters, and attractions inherited from such places as the World's Fair in New York. For teens, there were many concerts starring most of the great rock stars of the era. But Pirates World received negative publicity related to some of those concerts and was hard hit by the opening of Walt Disney World. It was closed by 1974. Today, the land is just another of Broward County's condominiums, but the memories, and perhaps descendants of some of the animals at the park, linger on.
So Sylvia, Tampa is famous for the whole pirate deal with the Gasparilla Festival.
Right.
What possessed these people to think that something like a pirate-themed park would be good in South Florida?
Probably the population boom that was going on all over South Florida. Broward County was starting to grow, young families were starting to move in there. And they figured that Dania, now Dania Beach, would be a central location for an attraction such as Pirates World.
And I recall a lot of very important and popular rock and roll acts playing concerts there. In fact, I remember very well some friends of mine, I didn't get to go, but some friends of mine went to see David Bowie at that particular park.
Yeah, and the list I looked up, you can find all sorts of old tickets, old programs on the web of concerts that took place in Pirates World of probably about at least 2/3 of the rock and roll acts that were famous during the late 60s and early 70s. And Pirates World became the first really central place in Broward where people could go and hear rock and roll music. Several years before the Sportatorium was built in Pembroke Pines.
Right, and I would say it would be better for families anyway because you have a nice place to have fun and then actually go and enjoy the music.
Yes, and you would think so, but there were some tussles between youths and the Broward Sheriff's Office.
Taking the pirate thing a little bit too seriously. Well, it's time for another break. But when we come back, We'll ask if there's an upside to owning an upside-down house. Curious? Well then, stay tuned.
Start your story at MDC. Be analytical. Be imaginative. Be a rising star. Be bold. Be connected. Be the solution. Be ready. What's your story? Be the best. Be you. Be MDC.
Fresh thinking is being served at Miami-Dade College. Create your own recipe for success in the evolution of food culture at the Miami Culinary Institute. Learn the skills you need to jumpstart your career in the culinary arts. Turn green into gourmet and celery into salary. Miami Culinary Institute. Food, culture, innovation. Visit us at miamidadeculinary.com. Register now. Miami Culinary Institute.
Education and opportunity within reach. You're watching MDC-TV.
Welcome back. Back during the financial crisis of the 2000s, many people had the unpleasant experience of being upside down on their mortgages. But in Sunrise in the 1960s, being upside down was a sales gimmick. This gravity-defying home could have inspired Lionel Richie's Dancing on the Ceiling. Or did they get inspired by Fred Astaire's Ceiling Dance in the 1951 classic Royal Wedding? Before we go upside down trying to figure this one out, here's the lowdown on the upside-down house.
In 1960, Norman Johnson combined Florida's two biggest businesses, development and tourism, through his upside-down house. Johnson was trying to figure out how to promote the 10,000 homes he was creating in his Sunrise Golf Village in central Broward. The answer? Build one of them upside down. People flocked to see the creation, which featured furniture, plants, even a car facing in the opposite direction. Quite a few people decided to buy one of Johnson's right-side-up creations, but many more were simply curious. So was Life magazine, which featured the house in a 2-page spread. More than 1 million people toured the home. Pilots even used it as a landmark. Johnson's success helped him to become the first mayor of what was then called the Sunrise Golf Village. In 1975, with Sunrise maturing, the upside-down house, a symbol of the early days, was torn down.
Well, Sylvia, I've heard of flipping houses, but this is taking it to a whole new level.
Yeah, that was a new mark, I think, in South Florida's development history. Norman Johnson had 10,000 houses to sell in his Sunrise Golf Village, and he figured the best way of selling them was to literally flip one of them, to have it upside down, right down to the car in the garage and even the plants.
Well, if you think about the incredible development that's taken place in Broward County since the 1960s, you really had to do something crazy to get people's attention and to get people interested in going out there. Because there was practically nothing.
Yeah, there was a lot of competition. West Broward was starting to develop, still a lot of farmland back then, as late as the 1980s when my family and I moved to Pembroke Pines. But a lot of developing communities back then in West Broward, and what's now Sunrise was one of them. So yeah, you had to stand out from the crowd.
Well, building an upside-down house is definitely one way to stand out.
Oh yeah. And they tore it down in 1975. It's one of the attractions that I will always regret that I never got a chance to see in any direction.
Well, moving west in Sunrise, we find the Sawgrass Mills Mall. Opened in 1990, Sawgrass Mills Mall wasn't all about shopping. Wannado City opened its doors more than a decade later as an educational, interactive place where parents could drop off their children so they could shop in the 7th largest mall in the United States. Kids visiting the magical city could imagine themselves as firefighters, police officers, or TV hosts. How about that? So, do you want to see that Wannado City video we did so well? Then here it is.
What do you want to do? For kids in Sunrise a little more than a decade ago, it was thought that the answer was Wannado City, an interactive, hands-on attraction. Wannado City, which opened at Sawgrass Mills in 2004, was an experiment in children's entertainment. Kitizens could choose from hundreds of grown-up activities, including firefighting and shopkeeping, and be paid in wongas. There were rides and places to eat. Early on, parents were attracted by the idea of someplace safe to leave their children while they shopped at the extensive mall. But the price of the attraction was very high, and competition in the community and even in Sawgrass Mills was fierce. Wannado City finally closed in 2011.
So, Sylvia, Wannado City, another one of those attractions that kind of peaked early and had a nice run for a while, but then just somehow didn't make it. What happened there?
Economics certainly was a factor. The cost of going in for a child was more than $40, which is quite expensive. And you could tack on another $10 per person for the concessions, food and drink, and maybe souvenirs. So it turned into a very expensive way to spend time. Which is a shame because it was a very creative venture. I got a chance to see a preview of it. It was during my journalism days. And it was very innovative in the way it was done.
But it's the kind of thing where it costs so much, maybe a family could afford to do it once, and then they wouldn't come back. You didn't really have a lot of repeat business. So.
That's true. That's true. It was the new thing to see for a while. And there was also competition that was more cost-effective, mainly, for example, the Miami Children's Museum, located near downtown Miami, has similar ways in which kids can reenact adult roles.
Well, that's just another fascinating glimpse into Florida history. Thank you, Sylvia. And
thank you.
Thanks a lot. And that's all for this edition of Roadside Florida. Roadside Florida features historical film and videos from the Lynn and Lewis Wolfson II Florida Moving Image Archives. To see more from the Wolfson Archives collection, visit our website at wolfsonarchives.org. You can search the archives catalog and watch videos online. And be sure to connect to our YouTube channel, where you will find hundreds of carefully curated clips, or link to the Wolfson Archives Facebook page to keep up with our busy calendar of historical happenings. I'm Rene Ramos. Until next time, thank you for watching.